Good evening. Welcome to Focus on Education. My guest tonight is Erin Webb, our newest school board member. And I'd like you to kind of introduce yourself to the community a little bit. How long have you been here? What motivated you to run for the Board of Education?
I have been here on and off my entire life. Born and raised here, born at Oak Ridge Hospital, and attended Willowbrook Elementary School, Robertsville Middle School, Junior High School, and then Oak Ridge High School. My husband and I moved away after we graduated, got married, moved away, and we were gone for close to 10 years. When our oldest son, we have 4 children, when our oldest son was going into 6th grade, we decided to move back to Oak Ridge because we wanted them to experience the schools here in Oak Ridge. That's why we came back. My husband had commuted back and forth too. He was tired of commuting, and he works in Oak Ridge. So we moved back here, and we've been happily here again, back in our hometown for going on 7 years now.
Good.
But yeah.
So what was your motivation to run for the school board?
I was approached by a few people that just said, hey, I think you'd be really good at this, or maybe you should consider this. And in my mind, I thought this is something that retired teachers maybe do, or retired administrators do, or people that have been in the education field, that this is something they pursued. And so the more I learned about this, the more I thought, yeah, this is something I'm really interested in. I came back here for my children's education. I'm very interested in what they're learning, what they're doing. This is something I could do. This is something that I might be good at. So the more I learned about it, the more focused I became on, yeah, I can do this. So I went and filled out all the paperwork and turned it in, and I'm excited to be on the board. I think this is a great opportunity, and I think I'm going to learn a lot. There's a lot to learn.
There's no question about that. No matter how much you think you know about it, there's a learning curve.
There's a lot.
There is. And it's really something that you need some diversity. It's nice to have some retired teachers on the board. It's nice to have some people who currently have kids in school. When I first ran, I had one in elementary school, 2 in middle school, and 1 in high school. So I kind of spanned the whole system. In the intervening years, of course, they've all graduated and moved on, but so it is a welcome thing to have people on the board who do still have kids in school, because you'll know things that are going on that the rest of us don't hear about until later. What has been your impression so far? We just got back from the TSBA convention. What did you learn there that seemed new or interesting, or something that you might want to pursue?
Everything was really interesting. I was amazed at the just the level of how everything works together, how the state and the government and the counties and all the different schools work together, and how everyone's focus is on the children, which is what I would assume that it would be, but it's just nice to see that and have that kind of cemented at how important this is, and how things change just like that. Different rules come in, and you have to change this and you have to change that. It's impressive, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of that. So I think making people more aware of just how impressive, I've always been impressed by Oak Ridge schools, but how impressive they really are is something that if we could just get that knowledge out to other people, and they could see how hard this is and how great our administrators and our teachers work to make Oak Ridge what it is. It's impressive.
It's a perception, I think, in other parts of the state that Oak Ridge is a very wealthy community, and that all of our children are children of PhDs. People who live here know that that is not the case, and yet our results tend to be more like that. And so one of the things I have found in working with the state on various things is that legislators on the education committee, they all assume that we have all the money in the world.
Oh yeah.
No, we don't. We really don't. We have to figure out where we can use what we do have to make the biggest difference. And as you said, our teachers are the ones that really do make that difference.
Oh yeah.
That any child from any situation has a fair shot at whatever they want to do. What do you think is going to be difficult?
I think, unfortunately, things do come down to money, and it's deciding what what is important and where that money and how that money is allotted, and what we focus on and what we don't focus on. I'm still learning what all the school board does, but I think those are some hard decisions that have to be made. Is how can we stretch what we have and make it work for everybody and give everybody a fair chance? Because that's, just like you said earlier, that's important. Every school's important, every teacher's important, every child is important. How can we make everyone have the same advantage across the board? And I think that's going to be the most difficult part of this.
What ideas might you have seen either at the TSBA convention or something that you've heard about elsewhere that you would like to see us look at? I kind of went to some of the more newbie seminars at the TSBA convention, so I didn't get to see a lot of the new things that were coming out. I went to you're new here, let's break you in really fast kind of lectures, which were very interesting. I went to one where we talked to some of the attorneys and the legal advice and different things like that. So I didn't get to, which I'm looking forward to though. I'm going to the new orientation in January, so I'll get to meet with some of the other new people and maybe we can discuss and talk about different ideas. But I am looking forward to that because I think even in my personal career, talking to other people in the same career as myself, that's how you come up with such interesting and innovative ideas and things to try, is talking to other people, see what they have. Well, and that's one of the things that you really should take advantage of, that I have found of tremendous value, is when you go to these things, talk to other board members, because any school system in the state, no matter how good or how bad, they're doing something good that we maybe don't know about.
Oh yeah.
And you can get ideas that we've just never thought of, never talked about. And of course the legislative session is coming up in, I don't know, another month and a half.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we have to watch, is the legislature can pass something and just like that, we have to change all the rules. We have to figure out how to throw in another hour of something in a schedule that doesn't have a spare 15 minutes. Or we have to make security provisions that there's no money to fund. That is one of the things that can be frustrating, is that the law changes. They say you have to do this, but no, we're not going to pay for it. And budgeting is complicated. There's money sources come from the city, from both Anderson and Roane counties, from the state, from the federal government. And anything that comes from the state and the federal government probably has some strings attached to it. So there may be this pot of money, but it can only be used over here. And the needs may be over here, but you can't mix them. You know, that was one of the things that I found challenging in the first year or two, is understanding why you can't use some of this money to achieve what seems to me like it would be that goal, but it has to be spent over here and you can't mix them. What are some of the things that you are excited about, that you see going on and want to continue or improve?
Well, I know we were talking out in the hallway earlier, our visit today to Willowbrook. I'm enjoying visiting the schools. I was able to do that early. So I've liked getting to know the teachers. I'm familiar with the West End schools, so I'm excited to meet the East End schools and get to know those teachers and those children a little bit better. But even today, the little student senate that was at Willowbrook, as well as their project with the buddy bench that's happening, I think that's amazing. Seeing the school, Linden, we went to Linden last month, and visiting with those kids and seeing their accelerated math and reading programs and just the interesting thing that the teachers are doing to keep pushing these kids forward. I'm learning so much. Jefferson was another great school that we did get to go to the east side for a little while. I just am enjoying seeing what all they do. My kids have been on the west side. I know what those schools, I think I know what those schools are doing, but I'm learning that they're doing even way more than what I thought and what I experienced with my kids in those schools. So that's exciting to me, is to get to learn from those teachers.
and what we can do to support them in those efforts. What do they need? Some of the things they need, it's challenging to come up with because the biggest one is time.
Yeah.
Where we find more time, but the more we can look at, and I think that having the laptop devices has helped quite a bit with that, because that allows the teachers to use class time differently. It does allow a student who's homebound for some period of time can actually Skype in and see the live class. So there are some things that technology enables us to do, and it's not technology for the sake of technology. It is providing a tool that allows us to do things we couldn't do previously. If you had a money tree in the backyard and it's harvest season, what would you do first?
With all of the schools, or just in general?
Well, all of the schools.
Okay.
For the school system.
We know that they all have some upkeep that they might need, that the teachers would want. But I would love, wouldn't it be great to go to the schools and just say, teachers, what do you need? What do you need? And give them what they need, and then say, and now what do you want? It would be great to do both of those things. Give them whatever tools they want, whatever neat seminars they want to go to, if they want to travel and check out different schools and talk to different people and bring those ideas back. That would be amazing. If only we had a money tree, we could do so much.
Well, and we've got one of the new things that happened just recently is some of our teachers over fall break were able to go out to different companies in the workforce and work those jobs for a few days to bring back that knowledge to the students. And some of the kids, especially in CTE classes, they were able to say, well, this company is doing this, and that's where you would use this thing that you're learning, or we haven't even talked about this thing that they're doing, and it's something new that we need to do.
That's great, yeah.
And I think that could be really a neat thing. What if we weren't restricted to doing that over, take away their fall break? You know? But again, going out into the real world and bringing back some ideas just to expand what they're able to do.
Oh, yeah. And extra help. You know, what teacher wouldn't love an extra set of hands to help?
I think they all.
I think they all would as well.
Need extra hands. But that's the challenge. Is we have these finite resources. How do we use them to the maximum benefit and try to give every child the most advantage we possibly can?
And that's the hard part. I guess you guys will be teaching me how we're going to do that.
We always need new ideas. I think we're going to take a short break and be back in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back. We're going to finish a discussion with our newest board member, Webb. So this is a really exciting time of year because we've made the first two playoff games. We're now, Friday night, we'll have the semifinals game at home. And looking at sports, that's one of the things that we've seen different policies come across the desk from time to time. You know, we have in our schools a slightly different, more rigorous grade requirement for that. And at times, when I was new, I said, well, why do we have sports? Why do we do this? And the answer I was given is there are some students that's their only motivation to show up to school. And by having the grade requirements that, you know, you have to have at least this average, you can't be failing anything and so forth, that's those students' motivation to actually do their work in class is to make the grade to play football, basketball, track, whatever. We see different policies come across that deal with sports, whether to allow certain sporting activities to count in place of the wellness C credit in high school. Because when they added that third PE credit, the state did allow us to say, well, if you're doing some of these other sporting activities that quite honestly are a lot more physical activity than a gym class. And so we elected to count any sport that you can letter in, which would include band and cheerleading, can count for that PE class. One of the things that we may want to look at sometime in the future is there are other things that don't fall under that umbrella. So the child who participates in competitive rowing, that's not a school sport, that's an outside sport, but from what I've seen is at least as much exercise as anything else. The dance cats, because that's a relatively new thing, they don't letter in that, so that's not counted as a PE credit. That's one of the types of policy things that might come up. Now, you've now been to 2 board meetings, so you've seen that we get these series of 5 or 6 policies every meeting, because since we've subscribed to TSBA's policy review, that's how we make sure we go through every policy every year and we can get rid of things that are antiquated and don't mean anything anymore, or we can catch up with things that may not align quite with either state law or state board rules. But are there any things that you think we need to look at?
Out of what you listed, I have had people ask me about the dance cats and why that's not something that they get credit for their gym class for. And I thought, well, that's a good question. So that's something I would be interested in knowing as well. I didn't know how new that sport was for the high school. And
I'm not certain, but it's been within the last 10 years or so, I think. So it's relatively new, and and because we go through every policy every year, that's something that at some point will come up for review. So that opportunity will come to say, okay, now is when I think we should look at this. Are we doing this right? And hearing at the time we passed the original policy, I had brought up, what about rowing? Because that's at least as much exercise. And the discussion that came from it was very interesting. It's, well, would we be responsible if a child is injured doing an outside sport, or does that obligate us to pay the fees for a student who wants to do ice skating or rowing or whatever the other outside sport is? Would that obligate us to pay the fees for it since we're giving credit for it?
And that's a prime example, though, of the layers that people don't think about. They just think, I think we need to have this happen. It's like there's all this extra additional behind it that people don't really, that I had never thought of before. And that's why it's been very eye-opening to see that. I think sports are important. I play every sport, all sports. I love sports. And I know that, I think that helps make a child a well-rounded individual. It's not for every child. And I think that student athletes work really hard.
They do.
They have to balance their schoolwork, they have to balance practice time, they have to balance game nights when you're getting home and you're on the bus and you're still trying to get all your homework in and you have a test in the morning. It's a lot. And so it would be worth looking at to say, here's the criteria for when you do and don't get credit, here's what historically we've done, and let's open that up to new ideas. But there are the layers that people don't think about. So it's that finding that balance of the two.
Well, and that's something that I have found challenging since we started this, going through every single policy every year.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot to read, and it's a lot to think about ahead of time of what are the unintended consequences, or what might the unintended consequences be. We discussed some of that when we were talking about the attendance policy a couple of months ago, that the way it was written, it's like, well, illness of a family member. So if the elementary school child is sick, Can mom keep the high school student home to babysit and then write a note and say, well, there was an illness in the family? So that you really have to think through it, and that's why I think it's important to have good discussions at the meetings, because other board members will think of things that I never thought of.
Oh yeah.
And it can be difficult to look through this and see how could this go wrong?
Yeah.
Because it's better to correct it before it can go wrong than wait till something
actually happens.
Yeah. And we've had that happen once or twice, and maybe we'll avoid those issues in the future.
Such is life. Yeah.
Are there other things that you would like to see us pursue? Other opportunities, what could we pay more attention to? What could we celebrate more?
I think I'm really interested in learning more about the trade programs and the different opportunities outside of just children going directly from graduation into college. I want to learn more about that and see what we're doing. I know the JROTC program started last year. I think that's a great opportunity for a lot of students. And I want to learn more about that. I want to see what they can do. And there's the middle college that started this year as well. I want to learn more about that and just see what Oak Ridge has to offer across the board.
Well, and you mentioned JROTC. One of the things that I noticed when we visited the high school last year was going into that class and observing some of those students I had known from earlier years and seeing what they had become in that class, and it was directly attributable to that class. All of a sudden there's discipline, respect,
purpose,
self-confidence.
Absolutely.
And I think it's tremendous. And so that's one of the new things that I'm very pleased with. And I hope we don't give up on more new things.
Yeah.
The new cybersecurity courses here at the high school are just getting started. We don't yet have as many students in that as we would like to have, because that's one of those where they could actually get an associate's degree in cybersecurity through taking courses both here and at Roan State while they're in high school. That's something that we in Oak Ridge were a lot slower to adopt than some of the surrounding systems. We're getting there, and there's a ton of potential in that. My youngest daughter got her degree in electrical engineering, but a minor in cybersecurity. And when she took her first job, that minor's coming in very handy. There's a lot of work out there. And our kids in this school system, they can do it.
Oh, absolutely.
And when you start young, as you know, I've worked with middle school kids in Technology Student Association with coding. Take a 6th grader and teach him to code. He doesn't know it's hard. He just does it.
And they're way smarter than me. I say that all the time. Even the elementary students, like these kids, the potential here is unbelievable.
Well, and if you start young, they don't know what's hard.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't tell them it's hard. It's just, this is what you have to do this.
Oh, yeah.
And they just do it. It's fabulous. And that's, I would, in a perfect world where we had a lot of time, where we had time that we can do more stuff, I would love to see more club type things like TSA, like the robotics club, because what I've seen firsthand in the students that do those is they figure out doing this activity that's something they want to do, how they need what they learned in math or physics or English or whatever. I need that to make this work, and this is what I want to do, but I need to learn that. So all of a sudden the grades come up, the behavior gets better, the homework gets done, because all of a sudden there's something practical about it that feeds the student's own wants. And if we had unlimited time, I would love to see that kind of stuff Although we are to some degree integrating more of that into the daily classwork. A lot of the teachers are using that sort of thing. But the more we can make a student want to know something, the faster they're going to learn it.
And find how they learn. You know, some kids, that's the way to their heart. And to unlock the key is to put hands on, you know, getting in there and working on that. And also the robotics program is amazing. My son was super involved in that since he was at Robertsville, and he came through. But it also teaches him how to work in a group. It teaches them how to take other people's ideas and make those all work together. And it teaches them how to interact with adults, which some children don't have exposure to.
It teaches them what we hear a lot of employers, not just in Oak Ridge, but statewide, the employers will say, our students lack soft skills. Stuff like that. When the student has to go and ask a local businessman for a donation to support the robotics club, they've got those soft skills down pat.
They do.
And the more we can weave that into everything else we do, the more ready our kids will be for whatever they do next.
The real world, because that's going to happen anywhere.
Maybe it's college, maybe it's tech school, maybe it's a job, maybe it's the military. They need those for whatever they're going to do.
Absolutely.
And I think integrating some more of these hands-on activities probably helps develop that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it has been a pleasure talking to you, getting to know you a little better. Good evening, and stay tuned next month for whoever's next.